Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Denise, and on this channel I talk all about minimalism and intentional living. Today we're going to be talking about 14 things you should declutter before the holidays come around. So as you can see, I am already ready for the holidays. I've already set up my Christmas tree. I know it's a bit early and maybe it's a bit controversial, but I just love Christmas. I love the holiday season. I personally like to put my tree up, so yeah, please don't come for me for that. So the holiday season can be a very busy time for most of us. It can be busy in the sense of there's more holiday events coming up, more time with friends and family, which is great. Also a time to start thinking of purchasing gifts, having family dinners, all that good stuff. And also a time when you will probably be receiving several gifts and knickknacks and just fun holiday things. So me personally, I like to kind of prepare for that a little bit in advance and just take the time to declutter a few items. And just a quick side note, I am drinking my favorite tea, which is the throat coat tea. I don't know if you've tried it before, but it naturally has like a very subtle sweet taste. It's an herbal tea, so it's non-caffeinated, and it's just delicious. So the number one thing that I personally like to declutter before the holidays is any excess decor that I won't be using this time around and that I believe I won't be using in the future. So I like to go through all my decor as I'm bringing it out. That way I'm going through everything as I kind of pick out what I'm putting out this year. And then I also get to look at the things that are left over and why I decided not to put it out. Usually those are items that I no longer want or enjoy, that are either broken or I just no longer have a use for. So those things usually end up getting donated. Obviously, if it's something that's broken, it will end up getting trashed. And really, when else are you going to make the time to go through seasonal decor like that, besides when you are like putting it out or putting it away, right? So I think now is the perfect time to do that. And the second thing that I like to just go through before the holidays and really just before the year ends is any paper clutter. So this can go anywhere from like receipts, any random paperwork, random mail, just anything really that's just kind of like sitting maybe on your desk or inside of drawers that you really aren't gonna need, but kept for one reason or the other, like those just in case paperwork items or notebooks that are used up that you no longer need. Obviously, if there are any documents that have any personal type of information, you can always shred those documents. Yeah, I just like to go through any of my drawers, my desk, to get rid of any excess paperwork. That way it kind of leaves me feeling like I'm going into the new year fresh. And paperwork is really just one of those things that is very sneaky. Like it can start to pile up and you don't really notice because maybe you stash it in a random drawer somewhere, or maybe it's like neatly packed in a corner on your desk and you don't really think about it until suddenly it just seems like it's totally out of control. So I like to take the time this time of year to just tackle that and start fresh for the new year. And number 3 is any fall winter clothing items that you will no longer be reaching for. Obviously, I talked about this when I was putting together my capsule wardrobe, but if you're not a capsule wardrobe type person, maybe this isn't something you do like every season or whatever, now is really the time to just look at your closet and see which items you aren't going to be reaching for the season. Maybe it's worn out clothing, maybe it's like socks with like holes in it. Also, Christmas time, you might be gifted new clothing items. So just look through your things, decide what's pretty much done with, what doesn't fit anymore, what doesn't make you feel good, and just either like donate, sell those items, and if it's something that's actually really trashed, then maybe it's just time to say goodbye to it for good. And I'm saying this because I do have several pairs of socks with holes in them that I desperately need to get rid of, and those are going in the trash today. And number 4 is going to be any expired pantry items. This is kind of a time of year where a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us are doing like more cooking, more than usual, at least I am, more seasonal fun recipes. So I am usually buying a little bit more of like seasonings, more pantry items, different ingredients that I typically wouldn't purchase during the rest of the year. So now is a good time, as I'm like adding several fun new things to my pantry or my seasoning cabinet or drawer. Now is a good time to just kind of go through your pantry or your spices and see what has been expired, what is no longer good, and really just get rid of those items. Maybe use up items that are close to their expiration date but are still good to use. And that way you're just minimizing that waste. But unfortunately, if there are some items in your pantry that just need to go, now is a good time to clear those items out and just make room for things to come in or just make space. And number 5, I think, is one that a lot of us are guilty of or feel guilty of, and that is gifts that we have received in the past that we just never used. Like, I'm talking about things that still have the tag on it, are still in the box, you never opened because it's not something that you really needed or wanted, but someone gifted it to you and you just felt guilty for getting rid of it. Now is the time to really just let go of those items. I think it's totally fine, obviously, to take items and gifts that you don't really need. You know, say thank you, be grateful. But after that, it's really up to you, and it's yours to do whatever you would like to do with it, including donating it or regifting it or doing whatever you want with it, right? So don't feel guilty about it if you never used it. Maybe consider regifting it or donating it. Obviously, this is a time when you'll probably get more gifts, so you really don't need things that you aren't using just taking up space. And number 6 is going to be expired makeup and skincare products. Although I am very intentional and I am kind of minimal in this category, I'm still guilty of every now and then not using up an item completely, either because it didn't really work for my skin, or maybe it worked for a certain season and now it doesn't. Whatever the reason is, you know, makeup does expire after some time, so does skincare. If you have like empty bottles or half empty bottles or things that you know you're just not going to use up or are no longer good to use, yeah, now's the time to get rid of it. And number 7 is any excess wrapping paper or gift bags. Obviously and hopefully you're going to be using most of this to wrap gifts that you may be giving this season. But if you have excess wrapping paper or gift bags that you are no longer going to be using, maybe you have like a bunch of excess wrapping paper that there's only about this much left and you kept it for whatever reason, but it's kind of useless. Yeah, just get rid of it. There's no reason to be storing that unless you know you're actually going to be using it. And number 8 is one that many of us might have an emotional attachment to, and that is cards, like holiday cards, birthday cards, any type of greeting card that you may have received in the past. Personally, I do keep some cards for a long time. Obviously, there's a lot of cards that we get that are very nice and, you know, they're nice to read in the moment, but do you really want to keep it forever and store it? I personally don't. It's not to say that I didn't enjoy the card, but I just don't feel it necessary to keep it. So sometimes out of guilt, I do keep some cards for a while, but then I go back and I declutter the ones that really I feel is not necessary to keep them. So now is the time to just declutter some of those cards if you are someone that even keeps them at all. Obviously, if you have a very strong emotional attachment to all your cards, I guess that's more of a personal thing. So if you decide you want to keep them, by all means, do what you want. Personally, I like to declutter my cards every once in a while. And obviously with holidays coming up, we're obviously going to be receiving more cards. So I just like to make room for what's to come. And number 9 is toys. So I don't have any children, but I just imagine if I had children, I know that they would be into different things at different stages of their life. So I think at some point they might not use some toys as much as others. So obviously, you know, kids are probably going to be getting new toys for Christmas, new gifts. So I think this time of the year is a great time to just declutter the toys that aren't being used as much as others, just to make some space for that and avoid excess clutter. And number 10 is going to be any candles that you don't use. Personally, I like to declutter any candles that I either didn't like the scent of. Sometimes they're basically all done and I know I'm not going to reuse the jar and it's just like there in storage. I've done this in the past where I tell myself I'm going to reuse the jar or the container and then I don't end up doing that and it just sits there for months to even a year, maybe even more. I do have a couple of those in my cabinet to declutter. So if you have the same issue or you do the same, I encourage you to maybe declutter those items and just clear up that space. And number 11 is going to be decluttering the medicine cabinet, like maybe vitamins, medicine. Just go through your cabinet, make sure everything is still good, get rid of anything that may be expired. Obviously, look for the safest option or way to dispose of those items, and that way you don't have to worry about expired medicine or other like vitamins, that kind of thing in your cabinet. And number 12 is to just kind of go through your food items, your fridge. Same thing, just make sure everything is still good. Make sure you don't have any like random expired products in there, like maybe dairy products or condiments, things like that, things that we tend to leave in our fridge longer than we should. But now is a good time, especially because if you're someone that likes to cook or, you know, shop a little bit more in the food category for the holidays, just so they don't kind of get like thrown off into the back, you clear out that space and just make room for new ingredients that you're going to be using. Obviously, it's good to be mindful in the future and kind of keep track and reduce being wasteful, but obviously there's some things that you just forget about, and that's totally normal. It happens to all of us. And number 13 is any kind of random cords / electronics. I don't know about you all, but for some reason, these kind of items keep popping up here and there. And honestly, I don't know where they come from. Sometimes I do, but a lot of times I can't even remember where a certain cord came from or what it's meant to be used for. Normally, what I like to do is before decluttering these items, I put them all like in a baggie. And then I like to go back to it. If I haven't reached for any of those cords in, let's say, 3 to 6 months, then I think it's safe to say you can get rid of it. And number 14, the last category I like to go through and declutter before the holidays is any type of like kitchen gadgets, utensils, just kitchen items that you no longer reach for or that maybe are broken and that you no longer have use for. I know personally sometimes I feel guilty for getting rid of these items. I feel like I can either fix it or it's still usable and it ends up just sitting in a drawer and it's just kind of pointless. It's just taking up clutter. So now is kind of a good time to just go through those items and just see what you can get rid of, see what you no longer use. Maybe there's some items that you need to replace. But I feel like the kitchen is really an area where clutter can pile up quickly. And before you notice it, it can feel very overwhelming, at least for me. And obviously, if you are someone that is going to be doing like a lot more cooking during the holidays, this can kind of just help reduce that clutter, reduce that stress of clutter in the kitchen, and just make things a little bit more enjoyable, I think. At least that's how I feel personally. But yeah, those were 14 things that you should declutter before the holidays and that I will definitely be going through and decluttering before the holiday season. And like I've said in the past, decluttering and minimalism is so personal and can look so different from person to person. So obviously there may be some things on my list that you don't have a desire to declutter whatsoever, and there may be some other things that I didn't include on this list that you can look into decluttering if you would find it to be helpful to you. So if there's anything on this list that I didn't mention that you also like to go through and declutter before the holidays or just really any time of the year, let me know down in the comments. I would love to know what those things are. Maybe it'll spark some ideas for me too, maybe some things that I'm not really thinking about. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.